Friends, the story begins by showing a girl named Cairo, whose parents used to live far away from it. Cairo was very fond of writing since childhood and she wanted to grow up and become a writer, so she used to write a lot when she got free time. For now, Cairo is a high school student. She leaves for her school early in the morning on the way to the jungle because she didn't want to miss her teacher Jonathan's class. After some time, Cairo reaches the school where teacher Jonathan was already present in the class. Seeing Cairo come so early, Jonathan is very surprised because the class hasn't even started yet. Jonathan wanted to become a big and famous writer, but when his dream didn't come true, he became a teacher. Anyway, now Jonathan asks Cairo for his name, on which Cairo tells Jonathan her name and tells about herself. Here Cairo tells that her friend Vinny asked her to attend Jonathan's class because Cairo is very interested in English literature. Here Jonathan asks Cairo to read the books given in the syllabus. But Cairo had already read them before, so here Cairo's friend Vinny comes here, who is a talented student in the class. Now the class was a long time before it started, so these two go out for a little while. As soon as they go out of Cairo, Jonathan starts checking Cairo's stuff and he finds an adult book from Cairo's stuff, but before he could check it, a teacher named Boris comes here, who teaches here. And he is also a good friend of Jonathan. He brings coffee for Jonathan. But Jonathan was in a romantic mood, so he says to his wife to distract him from his work that a student was reading my book in class today. Jonathan's trick works and his wife starts paying attention to him, after which they both drink a little and get very close to each other. But before he can do anything, Jonathan's wife's phone starts ringing, which spoils their mood. The next day, we see Jonathan and Boris both sitting in the playground of the school, who were talking to each other. They both look at the forest in front of them and say that this forest is very dense and very old. Then they see Cairo coming from the forest, which looked very beautiful. In a while, Cairo comes to them and starts talking to them. Now, because Cairo didn't have breakfast today, so Boris gives him some biscuits to eat. Here, Jonathan, who was very disappointed with his wife's behavior at night, starts looking at Cairo while eating biscuits. After a while, Cairo thanks Boris for giving him biscuits. After that, Boris leaves from here. And after Boris leaves, Jonathan asks Cairo, "Don't you feel scared to come from this forest? There are scary animals in it." On this, Cairo says to Jonathan that I am the most dangerous and scary thing here, on which Jonathan starts laughing. Then the scene shifts and we see that Boris was passing by Winnie. And here, Winnie deliberately drops her book on the ground because she wanted to draw Boris's attention towards her. But here, Boris stops and asks Winnie, "What do you want?" On which Winnie does not answer. But she comes close to him and also flirts with him. Because of which, Boris gets worried and leaves from here. At some point, Cairo is watching all this. And as soon as Boris leaves from here, she goes to Winnie and says to him in a little anger, "Have you gone mad? Are you doing all this with your teacher?" On Cairo's behalf, Winnie says that you are feeling jealous with her, that is why you are saying this. But Cairo replies, "I am not jealous of you. Rather, I am surprised to see your courage." Now, after a while, they leave the school. They go home where Vinny says to Cairo that you are actually very beautiful, but you have never tried to show yourself beautiful. Here Cairo says that I do not like all this, then Vinny says that I like Boris very much. And I want to have an affair with him. Cairo is worried about Vinny's words and says that I am worried about my college admission. Question, in which he had to tell her about the biggest achievement of his life. They both start discussing about this and here Vinny says to Cairo that you have an affair with Jonathan. And then write about it. Cairo says to Vinny that Jonathan is 20 years older than me, but Vinny says that these things are common these days. After this, Vinny starts telling Cairo good things about Jonathan, which makes Cairo interested in Jonathan and she starts reading Jonathan's written books at night. The next day, Cairo keeps looking at Jonathan carefully in class and Jonathan notices this. And comes to him and says that meet me after the class is over. After some time, the class ends and Jonathan starts waiting for Cairo. But Cairo does not listen to him. He is very upset that he is not going to meet his teacher. When the teacher comes, Boris arrives here and tells Jonathan that you started liking Cairo. But Jonathan does not agree with this and tells Boris to leave. Before leaving, Boris does some dance steps and makes Jonathan go crazy. And after his departure, Jonathan repeats his dance. And then Cairo comes here, who starts laughing at Jonathan. Then Jonathan also laughs at his stupidity. Then they both sit down and start discussing English literature. Jonathan says, "I want you to write a short story in the style of your favorite writer." And if you do that, I will give you the full number in the midterm, on which Cairo agrees. Then they both start talking like this, and after some time, Jonathan asks Cairo to come to a place on the weekend, where he was going to help in this assignment of Cairo. Now Cairo reaches the place Jonathan mentioned in the weekend, and after some time, Jonathan also comes here. Then a poet starts telling him a poem, which Jonathan was listening very carefully. But Cairo was only focused on Jonathan. Now at night, Jonathan goes to dinner with his wife and Boris, where Vinny works. Vinny comes to take an order from him, seeing which Jonathan's wife asks him, "Is she the same girl you are talking about?" Jonathan says to her that no, she is Cairo. And then Jonathan starts praising Cairo in front of his wife, seeing which Jonathan starts talking about Cairo. And then Jonathan says that he doesn't like Jonathan's wife, so she starts insulting Jonathan in front of Boris. The next day, Jonathan and Boris were sitting in the playground, and Cairo was coming from the same jungle. Cairo had brought coffee for them. She gives them coffee and praises the biscuits made by Boris. After that, Boris leaves from here. Now Cairo and Jonathan start talking here and behave very well with each other. After some time, Jonathan gets a message from his wife while going to class that they are going to go out somewhere. Then Jonathan comes to the class, where Cairo is sitting in the middle of the class, and Cairo tells him about his favorite writer, in whose style Cairo will write the story. Now Cairo tries to attract Jonathan to her, but he goes home in a hurry. After some time, Vinny comes here and climbs on Jonathan's table and makes Cairo climb. In the meantime, Boris comes here, seeing which Vinny starts flirting, and takes his mobile from him and puts it in her clothes, and says that you take it out. Here Cairo sees that her mobile is also missing. In the next scene, we see that Jonathan's wife is outside the classroom. So she comes out of the classroom, and says that she has to go to Cairo, because her wife is very busy. Here, Jonathan gets a call from Cairo, because he had accidentally brought Cairo's mobile. After some time, Jonathan comes to Cairo's house to return his phone, but as soon as he reaches there, it starts raining. But in the meantime, Cairo comes out of her house in a beautiful dress and asks Jonathan to come in. But Jonathan was not ready for this, so Cairo comes out and comes close to Jonathan and kisses him. After this, Jonathan completely gets lost in Cairo's thoughts, and always starts thinking only about Cairo. Now, one day, when he sits next to his wife says to him that, "I am not able to work because of you." After that, Jonathan goes to the small cabin of his house and starts checking the mail sent by Cairo here. In the mail, he finds the written story of Cairo, which was an adult story. This story was actually about a teacher and student like Cairo and Jonathan, which Jonathan also likes a lot. But the next morning, when Jonathan comes out of the classroom, he sees that Cairo has gone out of the classroom. But when Jonathan reaches the school the next morning, he sees that Cairo has gone out. Jonathan also likes it a lot. But when Jonathan reaches school the next morning, he does not behave like Cairo before. Cairo asks for the reason for this. Actually, Jonathan knew that Cairo was going to present this story as an assignment. And because he did not want anyone to know about his relationship with Cairo, he was behaving like this with Cairo. Also, Jonathan says that you have written a lot of wrong things in the story. On which Cairo says that they are all about us. But Jonathan says that there is nothing between us. And you have to write your story again. Otherwise I will fail you in the midterm. Here Cairo gets angry and says that you are getting jealous of me. Because I wrote what you could not write. And if you can fail me, then do it. After this, Cairo goes home crying and starts drinking with Winnie. Then the scene shifts and we see Jonathan, who is very sad and worried. His wife asks him, on which Jonathan shows him the written story of Cairo, which his wife reads as well. And she comes close to Jonathan. But then Boris comes here, due to which their romance is incomplete. Here Cairo says to Winnie that I have no interest in Jonathan. Then Cairo says to Winnie to message Boris. After that, Winnie starts teasing Boris by messaging him. But there is no effect on what Winnie says. After that, Cairo sends a good photo of himself and Winnie to Boris. After seeing this, Boris leaves Jonathan's house. After this, Jonathan's wife gets a call from Jonathan's school, through which he gets to know about Jonathan and Cairo's relationship. Then Jonathan's wife asks Jonathan, "What is all this?" But Jonathan says that this is all a lie. Then the next day we see that Cairo was not in class but in the principal's office. Because she was going to tell everything about herself and Jonathan to the principal. Here Cairo tells everything about Jonathan's truth. And after this, when Jonathan is asked about it, he has no answer. After which Jonathan is thrown out of the school. Whereas outside the school, Boris meets Jonathan and says that you should not have crossed your limit. And because of crossing the limit, you are sitting here today. At night, Jonathan reaches home and tells his wife that he has been fired from his job. After which his suspicion increases even more. And she asks Jonathan